Hello, everyone. Welcome to Tech at the Table. I'm your host Roy Rittaler, and I'm your guide through the world of technology. We're emphasizing the future, very grounded in the changes of today, and we're talking with thought leaders all across the tech industry. Today, I have the pleasure of speaking with Richard Mandy. Richard, welcome.
Thank you very much, Roy, and looking forward to our discussion and sharing our thoughts with the viewers.
So am I. So am I. So, Richard, you're quite the luminary in the asset management space. We were just talking before we got on camera here about an industry event that you were in. So, why not give us a little bit of background on who you are personally and
No,
professionally? And then let's talk about the event you were just in on Friday.
no problem whatsoever. So I've got good grief, in excess of 20 years experience in the ITAM world. Starting way back in probably 2000, 99, 2000, and evolving all the way forward to where we are today. One of my most memorable roles that I've done was London 2012 Olympic Games,
Oh, I didn't
where
know
I
that.
can truly say I took ITAM from cradle to grave. You know, built a solution, delivered a games time strategic solution as well. And at the end of the games, you shut it down and close the door when the last piece of equipment left on the back of a pallet and on the back of a truck. So, truly can say I've done cradle to grave of ITAM. Moved on into the fintech world, spent a number of years in the fintech world. And now I'm doing a very interesting transition career-wise into another career category and moving into the construction industry, where I've just recently started a new post there. But at the same time, I'm also kicking off a little sideline adventure that I've always wanted to do called ITAM Journey Consulting, and just seeing where that takes me, because it's one
Very
of
good.
those things that you've always wanted to do. You just kind of pull the trigger and do it.
That's very cool. Congratulations. That's a fascinating. We'll get into that. We'll get into
Sure.
your career transition maybe a little bit longer. But what I want to do, and I didn't know about the Olympics. That was a very memorable Olympics. I remember that. In fact, I was in London for a little while during that, and it was mayhem. So I don't know how you coped. It was a lot. Those games are something.
Absolutely successful Olympic Games,
It
and
was,
we were all level-headed and calm in the Technology Operations Center, of course,
yeah, I just
because
rewatched
everything
the
was
James
planned
Bond
to
intro.
perfection.
I can't not watch the Daniel Craig James Bond intro. I just can't keep every year I got to watch that at least once. Okay. So you're an asset management professional. You've been doing this for 20, 25 years plus. So where do you think the state of play is right now in asset management? Is it
Wow.
trucking along well, or are things changing?
I think it's a really interesting juncture coming into
Right.
asset management, because we're on the cusp of some big changes in the industry. The era of literally counting assets, ensuring license and compliance is truly dying. It's a dying art, as everything is transitioning absolutely at breakneck speed to the cloud. You've got
Mhm, mhm.
all your cloud environments for your data center assets moving into your various cloud environments. You've got your software evolving at rapid pace into SaaS, so software as a service.
Mhm.
And even your assets are changing from their traditional. I mean, you will still have your laptops, you will still have your on-prem assets that you've got to count. But I think we're moving into an era of truly digital asset management, where strategically there is now decisions that you've got to make across cost, risk, sustainability, and be extremely innovative over the way that you address your traditional asset management, and move into being able to be tactile for the go forward world that's coming.
Okay. So when you say something like digital asset management, I get ideas of beyond IT, operational technology, consumer technology. Well, what are the boundaries? What do you think when you say that? What do you mean by that?
I think the boundaries are limitless, but I mean, if you start to think about how rapidly AI is impacting everybody's world,
Hmm.
everyone is having to deal with artificial intelligence. It's becoming the new norm. You're looking at FinOps. So ITAM and FinOps, there's a definite convergence there. Where
Okay.
FinOps have, I genuinely think FinOps have done a much better job of selling it to the executives. And I think the reason why they've had such a easier path to sell their strategic thing. I mean, if you think about it, asset management's been around for 20 plus years.
Yeah.
FinOps is the new kid on the block. It's the new shiny toy, but it ties very nicely to cloud. If you think about it, everybody was on this cloud race to put all of their assets in the cloud. So, FinOps is your cost optimization, rationalizing your cloud. But as everyone is well aware, it's got really, really expensive. So, you've got cost optimization, rationalization,
Yeah.
and
Risk
then right
management.
shoring. Because I actually see that strategic move where people are moving out of the cloud for certain areas of their business and moving it back on prem because it's cost effective, but it's where it truly needs to be to
Okay.
perform the value add proposition that they need today.
So it's more flexible. I've got that. It's interesting. Like, so is the if FinOps was the response to cloud, is digital asset management, as you're calling it, is that the response to AI, or is it the culmination, or is it the aggregate of all of it? How do you look
I
at that?
think I think it's a combination of everything. I mean, AI is definitely new and changing, but AI comes with its own set of unique challenges.
Okay.
I think the way that FinOps deals with the business, its processes, its clear lines of articulation on how to do the cost optimization and things like that can transition very nicely into your traditional IT asset manager function. But then your standard asset manager is no longer going to be what he is today. You're not going to go, hey, I'm an asset manager, turn up to work, and all you do is sit and count laptops and servers and stuff. That's changing because now you are a strategist. You're responsible for financial control, so you're almost a financial controller. You're a technologist because you've got to know and be able to plug into all of these new technologies that are coming through, and truly transform into this data-driven digital business that is becoming the true value add proposition from an ITAM perspective today, and that intelligence that is driven from being able to optimize these estates to truly bring that value add. And then the other key piece is security. You play a big part in the security world because all of a sudden you're a key
Mhm.
person providing insight and guidance to your cybersecurity teams from your software and your hardware piece around your whole end of life portfolio and where they potentially have risks. So they've got unpatched assets, they've
Yeah.
got end of life assets in the environment, and they've got to fix those challenges as well.
So that's a very different job from today's traditional, we'll say, asset manager, or even FinOps team, honestly. I mean, FinOps, I think, is reaching for more of that, but still,
Mhm.
that would be different. So what happens if nothing happens? Let's say you're in a large enterprise, whether in the UK or anywhere in the world, and you stick to traditional. What's going to happen to you? What's going to happen to your job? What's going to
So
happen to the company? How about the tech that's around you? What happens?
So I truly think if you did nothing and you just carried on doing your day-to-day role as an asset manager or software asset manager, not only are you going to become invisible
Hmm.
within your enterprise, within your organization, ITAM is no longer sexy. It's no longer the new kid on the block delivering really exciting things. And all of a sudden you become irrelevant. You are simply going to be replaced in your current role as you do today if you do not change and adapt, and do not and if you don't make sure that you are providing insight into everything you're doing, sharing all of the wins, all of the groundbreaking moves forward that you're doing within your environments, and sharing strategy and educating your user base constantly. Very quickly, do you disappear into the back corner? You become back of house, you become invisible, you become irrelevant.
That's
Once you become invisible and irrelevant, all of a sudden you will find yourself very quickly looking for alternative employment. And it's not by saying that you're not doing your job properly,
right,
but
right.
it's more a case of you're not seen as strategic value add in the modern day enterprise and its evolution. So therefore you become obsolete.
Okay, that's a very bleak picture, but I understand. I see where you're going there. So let's flip the coin a little bit. So let's say you're taking these changes, you're seeing them, you're taking them seriously. You see the new tech, you see the new drivers, in particular the new drivers in the business, the new opportunities, and you decide to embrace it. What are the implications? I mean, think of it maybe if you look at it from a career point of view, like we just talked about, what are the requirements as a technologist? What are the requirements from how does it change your relationship with your enterprise or with your employer? How does that Tell me what that looks like in the future or today.
So, so I think if you look at the way things have changed and how rapidly people have to change their core skill set. I mean, your core item skill set will always stay with you because everything that the modern solutions deliver is part of your core skill
Hmm.
set anyway. However, it's making it relevant again. I think making sure that you focus heavily on upskilling. you know, Traditional SAM is slow and clunky and cumbersome. Typical vendors may bring out a product release once a year. When you start looking at the new pace of SaaS, for example, I mean, I've seen SaaS products where they literally are releasing updates or enhancements on a weekly basis.
Oh, for
Just
sure.
that sheer speed to market. You've got to be able to be adaptable, and be able to run with that pace. Now, in order to run with that pace, you've also got to embrace tools that are out there. AI is a fantastic enabler that you can bring to the table as part of your portfolio and offering. So not only are you going to have to upskill and learn how to use the AI efficiently within your enterprise, you're also going to have to learn how to do FinOps. So again, there's many upskill paths that you can follow, but building a base of good quality foundation data set, no matter what you're doing. If you trust your foundation data set, you've got the right agents discovering, bringing that data back to your central repository, and it's a curated, trusted data set. You bring in AI, all of a sudden, the value add of that data with the AI engine on top of it is priceless. You are then truly digging in and drilling into your environment. You're able to actually bring that true value add proposition back up to the business because you've got speed. Now, all of a sudden, your team
Mhm.
can focus on leveraging and using their core skill set to do value add things versus swizzling spreadsheets.
Okay.
You know,
Okay.
you,
Let me pause you right there. So you said a lot of things there. So let me drill into a couple of them. One is the data. So what I'm thinking about, because in any kind of fast, more agile environment, you're going to think in terms of good enough, right? You're going to think,
Mhm,
what is it that I have a project, an initiative, a question, right, that comes in, I need to answer, on behalf of one of my roles or all those roles put together, but I've got to go quickly. Things are changing. I've got to go fast. So sometimes, you make it's not a compromise, but you get to good enough. But you also talked about the data, fully trusted data underneath all of that. So how do you think of it from a practice point of view, the trade-off between good enough and the precision and quality of data? Like how do you do that? Are there places where you don't do good enough, or how do you think
mhm.
about that?
So I think for me the best way to do, yes, good enough is definitely a position on the roadmap. I think from a data perspective, good enough is not good enough for data, especially if you're going to go and invest in expensive things like AI, because it is expensive. And if you have a good enough data set and you bring AI on top of that, all of a sudden you're going to take good enough and you're going to expose all your loopholes and you're going to blow up astronomical things that don't truly exist.
Okay.
So I think when you're looking at your data set, you want it as near accurate as possible. Nothing's ever going to be perfect. I mean, I always aim to target 95 to 98% on the quality and completeness of my data set, making sure it was trusted,
Yeah.
allowing for an operational variance and understanding that things are constantly changing in any environment. By being able to do that, you can then build in your data analytics, you can build in governance, you can build in your strategic reporting, your forecasting, and everything else comes on top of that quality foundation. So it's the same
Okay.
as building. If you don't build a solid foundation, and you put a house on it, it's going to fall down. So your program will suffer constantly, with poor data set, because you're always never going to produce a true picture of truth. The business will turn around and say, I don't trust what you're telling me
Yeah.
because your data is not a trusted data source. So it constantly compounds itself. So I think you can't invest more time in anything. I think it would be focus on your data foundation as your biggest time investment to get it to that level of trustability and quality. And then you could work through other things where 75% can actually be good enough. Simply
Right.
because you're constrained with resources, time, and everything else, you can leverage AI to try and help mitigate some of those challenges. You can bring AI to interrogate and drive different insights into your data that you could then leverage, which buys some of that time back where you've invested it in the foundation layer.
I loved what you said, like good enough is not good enough when it comes to data, but for other things layered on the data, that's where you get
Mhm.
into, speed. You're going to come back through, you're going to be agile, you're going to be continuously improving. That's a very, very good metaphor. That's interesting. So one other thing, you talked about digital asset management, but should it be called something different? Like we tossed around a name uh, back when we were talking before around digital asset intelligence. How do you play those two? Which name do you like better? Are they two sides of the same coin, or what's the right label for this new way of doing things?
Well, I think if you speak to a lot of ITAM professionals, a lot of them are trying to come up with a hybrid name for FinOps and ITAM, something new where they join together. I think, I banded around the digital asset management piece because I truly think if you look at SaaS, it's cloud focused. All your typical on-prem stuff is dying. They're all evolving. They have to evolve to move to a SaaS model and an offering out to their customer base, and then adapt to the speed and pace of that SaaS world.
Hmm.
Um, because that traditional installations and your traditional software asset management world is going away. It's
Hmm.
it's it's truly it's on a journey, and part of that journey is to go to digitalization. You look at AI, it's all digital, it's all feeding into a big digital monster that can then in turn around and produce some amazing things, but it still needs that oversight and guidance. And I think, I've seen some fantastic offerings out in the world around robotic or AI, artificial intelligence, software licensing compliance and things like that. But if you truly read underneath the bonnet, it's backed up by SME professionals that are helping
Right.
to constantly feed and drive these things. So I think whilst you can eliminate some of the more junior spreadsheet resources, you will always need that SME, that expertise to be able to then review and ensure that the AI is producing trusted data and to the quality that you need to consume.
Okay, we're getting into a picture. In my mind, you're
Mhm.
developing. There's a picture in my mind developing based on what you're saying, which is a very robust data foundation where you're investing time, you're getting to a high level of quality, you're maintaining and driving that almost to perfection, but not quite. You have an
Mhm.
intelligent layer, you have a layer of intelligence over that assisting you, and then you have a layer of expertise on top of that in terms of maybe approval and trust and learning and so on, training the system using it. And then you talked about automation. So those seem to be the elements of your vision. Like in the next few years, when people are doing this job in 2 years, if we were to come back, that's the kind of structure. Or am I getting that wrong? Have I gotten it?
No,
Is
I genuinely think you're kind of hitting it on the head. As I
Yeah.
said, that traditional change is inevitable. However, it's going to take time, and you're going to have your stragglers that sometimes the industry is just so far behind that it will take time. But I think this evolution is happening as we speak. The convergence of FinOps and ITAM, it's real. It truly is happening, because you can see the value add proposition of having them under the same umbrella. I've
Yeah.
always seen ITAM as needing to exist in an ecosystem where you truly have a single picture or a single portfolio view of your entire environment under a single umbrella, then being able to deal with hardware, software, SaaS, FinOps,
All of it.
sustainability, end of life, all of that vision under a single pane of glass per se, or an umbrella. I think for any modern organization is imperative. But then don't get me wrong. I mean, I've seen so many organizations that still have a completely separate ITAM SAM team sitting in two completely different areas of the business.
Yeah.
So some very strange setups. And when you drill underneath the bonnet, you look and you ask these people, why have you got it set up that way? And a lot of it is driven through savings. Oh, we've had to position it like this because we had cost cuts, we had to do strategic
I see.
savings. These
Corporate
teams had
mindset.
capacity. So
Yeah.
you've got a corporate pressure pushing down who truly don't see the value add. And they just splitting the teams around where they can focus them and reducing the headcount. So you're allowing your team to do less and less and less.
Yeah, especially if it's siloed, right? Especially if it's
Mhm.
split apart. Like, but in your
Absolutely.
world, when you're talking about this vision, so the data, the AI, the automation that sits of it, and
Mhm.
then the expertise across, like you're going to need less people. I mean, those teams, the days of the 20-person asset or FinOps team, I mean, those don't even exist today. I mean, they have to
No,
shrink
that
in that
that
world.
that
Yeah,
is absolutely the case, 100%. Where you are bringing that extra layer of intelligence to the table, obviously AI is going to cost money, but it's
yeah,
not going to cost the same as 10 resources or five
right,
resources
right,
to bring in the AI elements that you need to drive that value add proposition. So certainly your teams are changing. Certainly the ability from the teams are changing. Where you're freeing up the SMEs, they can focus on the key elements of their roles to deliver the value add, but
yeah,
they don't need all of the horsepower of a big global team to be able to deliver that value add. I mean, you look at a team of 40 running a global operation, that team could probably scale back down to probably somewhere around 10.
yeah.
And I'm spanning multiple fears, not
That's a
not
big,
just
big company. Yeah,
perfectly
yeah,
SaaS. Yeah. So you can certainly see the change in that space. The other key piece is the convergence of FinOps and ITAM. Again, there is definitely going to be an overlap. So I think as an IT asset manager or an ITAM manager, you have to hybrid skill set. You have to go out and, in order to make yourself relevant in the modern world, adapt the FinOps qualifications, gain that FinOps experience, gain any AI experience, because then all of a sudden you're making your own and creating your own value add proposition to any organization because you can do multiple things. So again, that's trying to position yourself for the future with from a skill set perspective.
From a, I love that. From a use case and a value point of view, in your vision of the future, give me an example of something like something real tangible that you can do in that world that is almost impossible to do today. Like what's something that's what things are enabled by it? What's something, for example, in today's typical role or today's typical organizations, you get frustrated that you can't do that in that new world you'll be able to do? And what kind of values associated with that in your mind?
So I think for me, one of the best things that I've ever done with the new world level of data, and it may not have been an AI driven solution, but it was definitely built on top of quality foundation data, was the ability to rationalize and optimize my portfolio. And part of that rationalization and optimization, you're then driving real strategic savings back into your business where they can truly see the value add proposition of your
Yeah,
item program because it's taking it where it counts. It's run rate safe. But if you don't have the investment in the modern solution in place in front of you, you're not in that position. Your data is garbage and garbage in, garbage out. But at the same time, you can't be tactful to audits. Your time to audit, your speed to be ready for an audit, or to truly understand where your environment is. If you've got good quality data and you brought in the right tools, it's 50%. You're already there. Because the second the letter comes in, you're running an assessment on your environment and getting that picture straight
really
away.
real time. Yeah,
Um, so you got that rationalization. So you're saving anything from 10, I don't know, 10 to probably 20% savings, because you've got the data and you can leverage that to your advantage. Um, when you're looking at forecasting and budgeting, you're improving your position and your ability to give accurate forecasts out to the business. So all of a sudden, again, they're embracing your value add data set that you're putting in front of them, and they can make the strategic things, choices that they need. Um, End of life. You're forecasting end of life. So you're mitigating problems. So all of a sudden, you're no longer being reactive. You're in the driving seat.
Yeah, got that.
You're
You're being
telling the
proactive.
business what they need to do to be successful and mitigate any risk coming in from their portfolio. So all of a sudden, you're now seen as an enabler for them to continue to be successful.
That's really more the strategist, financial controller roles, the
Mhm.
technologies. I can see that. Yeah, that makes complete sense. Yeah, that's an exciting future. Like it's very different from what I see across the customer base today. When do you think this shifts? So if I'm listening to this podcast, I'm both excited and a little bit nervous about where I am today, but I'm excited about where the future is going to go. What do you think the time to change is? So what would I do? What action would I take today? Like what would you recommend? What should I do now? Because in some time frame, I'm going to have to be there. Is that tomorrow or is that in a year from now? What does that look like to you?
So if you've not started to change, you're already missing the boat.
Okay, so change is now.
Um,
Second step.
so truly, my interpretation of this is changes now. It's happening. It's very real. It's very relevant. I think, change was already happening 3, 4 years ago when you saw SaaS turn up and all of a sudden the vendors started going to SaaS with pace. I still look today, and you sit there and you go, how many people are truly not ready for this? I kind of
Yeah.
thought to myself, I was just amongst the mass with implementing a SaaS strategy and getting everything invested and being 3 years into a SaaS program. But all of a sudden you go out there and you've got, in 2025, you've got 20, 30, 40, and this is just people that I've had conversations for different companies recently, and you're going, you guys are only just starting your SaaS journey.
Yeah.
You are already 4 or 5 years behind the curve, but you still have enough time to make a difference. So I genuinely think you're probably looking at a 3 to 5 year timeline with extreme pace. I mean, 3 years is being realistic, where people should have already got SaaS programs, SaaS strategies in place and already be changed, or deep down the road of changing and evolving in order for them to remain relevant and successful. Because it's merging from an ITAM FinOps perspective. I think it's a lot faster in the US than it is in EMEA. I think EMEA is going to adopt it slightly slower. Um, maybe not so much in Holland, because I know Holland is pretty good on the whole FinOps space, but that adoption is happening. It's happening now, and people are starting to see that journey. But as that uptake and that journey starts to gather pace, again, you're just going to see accelerated programs and accelerated relevance to get them to the point of, we're now in this position and we're now successful. So I genuinely think 3 to 5 years.
Okay.
Asset management as it stands today will disappear in its traditional format, and it will be an evolution hybrid
So
go forward, where it merges into a bigger technology, digital governance, ITAM,
yeah.
FinOps world.
So you think that okay? So I've got a million questions, but we're going to have to limit it because we're going to have too much to talk about. So, but I'll give you two more. One is, it seems to me that selling this into the organization is important, but that the organizations are evolving to get to this place regardless, in the sense that they are making the cuts, they are, sweating the assets, making converging. How much selling do you think is involved on the part of the leaders and the teams upstream into the corporation to break down the silos and enable this?
So I'm going to go back to something I spoke about earlier,
Yeah.
and this is making sure that your ITAM program is still relevant.
Mm.
Making sure you're visible, making sure you're relevant, making sure you're sharing all of the wins, any exciting enhancements, evolutions that you got, making sure that is getting up through to your executive layer. Because by getting through and in front of the executive layer, what you are truly doing is you are maintaining the buy-in and support for your program. And that way, when you start to share with them the evolutions and the enhancements that are coming down the line, they're already on board and they're already partnering with you to make a difference. If you don't start to share all of that level upwards, you're going to constantly struggle and battle your way forward throughout this journey. But yeah, I genuinely think that one would play very nicely into that to maintain the support. So I think the sales would go hand in hand because obviously you're going
Right.
to need evolving tools and so on to help support the new initiatives. But it becomes an easier sell because they can then truly see the value add proposition, the return on investment, and everything else because you kept them constantly informed along their journey as well with you.
I would think too in your consulting business, and I'm not trying to create an advertisement for you here, but that because that can be a difficult thing to do, right? That's difficult for if you're not used to leading that change and driving it
Mhm.
up the chain and so on and doing that kind of, it's not internal marketing, but it has something to do, just sharing the wins, sharing the relevance, increasing the relevance. Would a consultant help with that? I would think so, right? Like I would think that you
Yes.
could go to the outside and get some help with that, both with the program and with the expansion of it into this new space.
I think absolutely you're absolutely bang on the money because what you're then truly bringing in is somebody who's got experience,
Yeah,
who's been there, done that, and crossed that bridge
yeah,
to help and drive your program. Because a lot of the times, I speak to people and they've turned on new features or they've implemented software and they go, fantastic, we've got all this data, but what am I supposed to do with
do
this? How am I supposed to use this? And how am I supposed to take this forward and make it into something amazing? We hear the wonderful stories of great successes in programs, but for me, and it's always been a trick that we've applied, or I've applied throughout my career, is don't try and boil the ocean. Pick a strategic piece of that product, a feature, whether if you're implementing SaaS, don't try and go for 8 different discovery sources and bring in absolutely everything you possibly can.
yeah,
Simplify it, take a step back and say, right, let's focus on financials. Or let's do the browser plugin and bring what we can't see. But you're then able to set your program up for success because you're taking it in small, manageable chunks. You're evolving those chunks into something bigger and better. And as you mature in that program and that evolution, you can increase the scope of what you're bringing through. And it's a lot easier to constantly maintain that additional work coming through because you're adding in extra resources, but you can keep showing the value add proposition as
every
well.
increment is
So
valuable.
your programs just keep growing in small, manageable chunks.
Love it. Okay, this has been, again, I have a million additional things I'd love to speak with you with, but we have a time limitation here. It's a bit of a time box. Um, any last words? Any last words for the audience before we say goodbye?
I think for me, the most exciting piece to share with people is embrace the change. Truly purchase and buy what you need, not what you think you need. Use your systems to provide that valuable insight and make sure you maintain relevance by sharing absolutely all of your wins, all of your small victories with your executive so that they can maintain support and proactive engagement in your program and truly see the value add proposition that you bring to the table. And don't be afraid of change.
That's words to live by. Richard, it's been a pleasure. This has been a great conversation. I've really enjoyed it. As I've said a million times, I wish it could go on for another half an hour, but it will, maybe in the future.
Absolutely.
Maybe we'll have you back and we'll extend the
No
conversation.
problem whatsoever. It's a pleasure as always. Really
All right.
enjoyed it.
Love to see you again. Okay, Richard, thank you very much. Have a wonderful rest of
Thank
the
you.
day.
You too. Cheers for now. Thanks a
See you.
lot.
Cheers. Bye.
Bye.